All right, guys, so we're starting chapter 9 today. We're going to talk about ratios and proportions with applications. These are actually pretty easy. You've done these a lot. It really comes down to being able to simplify things or cross multiply. So we'll get through this. It shouldn't take too long. A ratio is a comparison of two numbers by division. Like if we used 3/4 or 9/5. We should know if those are equivalent or not. And of course, these aren't because they're simplified already. If they're proportional, then we have something like this, like 6/4 is equal to 3/2. Now, we're going to be checking those today using cross multiplication. So obviously the ones up here are not equal because 3/4 cannot turn into 9/5, but 6/4 and 3/2 are the same thing. So the way you do that is cross multiplication. I know you've done this before. You take the numerator of one times the denominator of the other and set it equal to the same thing on the other side, in which case you'd have A times D should equal C times B. If they are, then they are proportional, okay? So we're going to determine if each pair of these ratios is a proportion. So I'm going to set this up as 4/6 equals 12/16. Now I'm just going to do my cross multiplication. I have 6 times 12, and you do not have to write all this out if you don't need to, equals 4 times 16. Now, of course, you can use your calculator for this if you need to. 6 times 12 is 72. 4 times 16 would be 64. Those are not equal, so this is not a proportion, okay? Let's look at the next one. I have 3/5 equals 6/10. I do my cross multiplication. 3 times 10, is it equal to 5 times 6? Well, that's 30 equals 30. So the answer is yes. So those are pretty easy to find out, but what we're going to have to do now is solve each of the following proportions. Now, they've told us they are proportions, so they should be equal when we cross multiply, meaning we can cross multiply, set them equal to each other, and solve for the missing variable. Now, this one's going to be kind of decimally. First, I have A times 4, which is 4A, equals 7.8 times 3.82. Now, again, you can skip that middle step if you want to go ahead and do your multiplication. That's 4A equals this horrible number, 29.796. Then I can just solve for A by dividing by 4, and you get A is 7.449. So not very tough if you just know how to cross multiply. And I know you do know how to do this because I've been helping some 7th graders with it in the last couple of weeks. So same thing, this is a proportion. Now, this one's a little bit trickier because it has a negative. So when I cross multiply, I want to take the negative with the numerator. You could do it with the denominator too, but only do it with one term. The other problem is I have this little expression here, and when I cross multiply, I want to make sure and use parentheses. So what I have really is -3 times x equals 7 times x plus 2. Okay, so we're going to have to distribute here. So -3x equals 7x plus 14. And now we can get our x's together and we can solve. Now, just to reduce a step, I'm just going to subtract the 7x from both sides. You could move the 3x if you wanted to. It's really up to you. That gives me -10x equals 14. I can divide both sides by -10, and I get that x should equal -1.4. So not too tough, guys. Just be careful with your multiplication. So let's look at a couple more. Same business, it's just one's not negative. We do have multiple x's running around here, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I remember that's in parentheses. So I have 5 times x equals 3 times x plus 6. So I'm going to distribute on the right side. That gives me 5x equals 3x plus 18. And by the way, guys, which way you do first doesn't matter. Like if these were switched, if 5x were over there and the other one was on the other side, you know that wouldn't change anything. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. That gives me 2x equals 18. And then, of course, I divide by 2. And 18 divided by 2 gives me x equals 9. And then the last one, we're going to have a couple of distributions here. So I'm going to go ahead and write my parentheses so I don't forget. I have 4 times x minus 2 equals 2 times x plus 6. So let's distribute on both sides, and then we can solve. So that's 4x minus 8 equals 2x plus 12. I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 2x from both sides, but I'm also going to add 8 to both sides. And you can do that in 2 separate steps if you want to. That gives me 2x, the 8's cancel, equals the x's cancel, and I have, it looks like 20. Then I divide both sides by 2, and I get that x equals 10. So just watch your steps. The way people miss these generally is mismultiplying or misadding, so be really careful when you go through the work. It says you can solve many problems that involve equal ratios or rates by using proportions. So we're going to look at a couple of these. It says Josephina sells helium balloons. She charges $9 for 12 balloons. So there's one of ours. I'm going to put money over the number of balloons. So that's $9 for every 12 balloons. It also says at what rate would she charge for 50 balloons. Now, I know balloons are in the denominator, so they gave me balloons, so I'm going to put that in the denominator. Cost is at the top, which is rate, so that's where my variable is going to go. So the setup here is really important. Now I can do my cross multiplication. 9 times 50 is 450. 12 times x is 12x. And now I can divide by 12 and find out that actual cost. So let's see, 450 divided by 12, I'd have x equals, now this is money, so I'm going to go ahead and put that there. 37.5 is what you get, but remember, since it's money, I'm going to go ahead and add that second decimal point. So $37.50 for 50 balloons. I want you to try this one on your own real quick. You might pause it for a second and then come back and see how it works. So I hope you tried it out. And I want to also explain something else on this one. A photocopy machine copies 50 pages in 1.5 minutes. At this rate, how long would the machine take to copy 90 pages? You really have some choices. Same thing on the balloon one up here. I'm going to do pages over minutes. But if you wanted, you could do minutes over pages. Just make sure when you write out your proportions, they're consistent, okay? If you're going to use this, both fractions need to, or both ratios need to be pages over minutes. If you do the bottom one, both need to be minutes over pages. So let's see, the first one said 50 pages in 1.5 minutes should equal 90 pages over some unspecified amount of time. So if we flip these and did minutes over pages, the cross multiplication will still end up being the same. Either way you do it, you're going to have 50x equals, let's see, 1.5 times 90 would be 135. And then I divide both sides by 50. And it looks like to make 90 pages would take 2.7 minutes. So guys, it's not too bad. Make sure and do your best on this. If you have any questions, just let me know. Good luck.